I'm just one of the lesser lights there. Dr. E. Franklin Jackson is the minister there, and I just sit on the sidelines. But at any rate, I'm very appreciative to have Mr. Phelps say his words. We also have here, I think you didn't see Mr. West, who has graced our presence from the Washington Post, because this is indeed an very auspicious occasion for us in Anacostia. And it's like a dream come true that you have taken time out of your busy schedules to come over and to share. And we hope deep within our hearts that as the Anacostia Neighborhood Museum grows, that this, well, might not start all over again, since the video takes on. I'm grateful to Mr. Dale here. It's been 7 years now, over 7 years that the Anacostia Neighborhood Museum has been functioning as an entity. And it is primarily because of his interests, because of his heartfelt dedication, because of his strength of character. Mean what you say and say what you mean. Desire to create an atmosphere wherein everybody feels it has something to offer and an opportunity through which he can offer it. And I am grateful to Mr. Dale as we launch off into another somewhat brighter horizon in terms of programs at Anacostia Museum. I have been working with him for more than 7 years here in Anacostia, but the most inspiring thing that has been done in those years that we've been here has been the Anacostia Museum. It has challenges every day that you meet, that one feels grateful that he's alive and grateful to be in such a position. So as your humble servant, I would say, chosen to do this kind of work by people here in Anacostia, that I find it to be the challenge of my life, and a happy challenge, that I find myself at this particular time in history here, in this circumscribed community called Anacostia, that I see being lifted up to the point where it can become a shining example, not only in the United States, but in this world. How many communities can you point to in this country where people like ourselves, old people, young people, middle-aged people, and even children just being born, have a community where they cherish, where they enshrine the past? So often we want to forget about the past. I met a young man from Federal City College a few years ago who came to the museum, and he asked me, we had an exhibit on Frederick Douglass at the time, and he said, Mr. Kennard, would you come down to my community down in Woodbridge, Virginia, and talk to my high school teachers and students about Black history? And I said, like, what's their interest? He said, well, they're interested in talking about, what's happening. I said, well, listen, I think we best serve them if we can help you. I said, for an example, let's talk about Booker T. Washington. And he said to me, I don't want to talk about it on the terms like that. I said, what you mean? I said, do you know anything about this man? Where he was born, the trials of his life, or what he has contributed? He said, well, he's Uncle Tom as far as I'm concerned. I said, well, listen, man, if you can't even give me normal nomenclature, where he was born, where he did his work, is that you aren't in any position to start saying what he was. And your people from down in Woodbridge, Virginia, have sent you up here so that you can begin to know what is right and what is wrong, the heritage of our people, to the extent that you have something to share. So don't take what people say about others, go through the material yourself. And hopefully you'll be so educated that you make your own decision about what kind of man Booker T. Washington was. That's just a case in point. Many of our young people are in such a mad dash to what you call make it, that they pass by older people like a whirlwind, is that they don't have any time to sit down and talk with their grandmothers or grandfathers. We're trying to cluster ourselves with the material manifestations of success to the extent that we end up as shadows and empty on the inside because we don't know from whence we have come. And I'm convinced that in the community of Anacostia, if we don't, at this particular point in time, learn and lift up and make it graphic so everybody can see and understand from whence we have come, we are going to be blessed. So I would say again, this is a dream come true that you have come here to share with us on this day. And I hope deep down within myself, with the chairmanship of Mr. Elmore Dale here, that this organization, as you put it together, will increase to the extent that the word history will not be something that people call boring. And you know, oftentimes I think that when people say history is boring, somebody is trying to politically victimize us, to say that, you know, history doesn't matter, history is boring, history isn't worth studying. Is that if that's embedded in your mind, then you start feeling that way about history, about anything else. I'm sure I'll come in and see what to say.
This is one of the sales boards, if any of you can't remember. Henry Sales.
So as I was saying,
Mrs. Egypt, nice to have you.
So as I was saying, is that we must decide for ourselves that history is important, that it has a bearing not only on where we are now, but where we ever hope to go in this world. And you have shared with us, many of you have shared with us your life's work, the life's work of your parents and ancestors as you have known them. And we hope to pick your mind and pick your better self to the extent that we trap on tape recorder, that we trap in books, that we trap on the videotape machine. Those things, those experiences that future generations can benefit from. We intend to do an exhibit in 1976 as one of our bicentennial projects called the Anacostia Story. You will play an eminent role in that. We are also preparing a book for 1976, also entitled the Anacostia Story. We haven't gotten to the point where we will see a film that we can spread throughout the schools and churches of Anacostia that would be adequate testimony of the life and the times of the people of Anacostia. Now, what you are doing is an example, as I said, to the world, but it is a greater and more meaningful example to other people in the city that they will also start organizations based on the direction that you give them. If you stay together and if you become a powerful entity in the community of Anacostia, is that you will lead the way toward the beginning of something in this city that will have no end. And when we, as we say, look back on the lives of people, sometimes when we're ready to pass on in the sundown years of our lives, is that what you will have shared with us will be adequate testimony to the extent that you did pass this way, that you did share what you had with your fellow man, and that we will see to it that future generations will be better because you passed this way. So Mr. Dale, with those words of thanks sincere to the people who've come here today, and I hope that this will, you don't consider this a little outing for today, and that you go back home and say, well, I'll let them do what they want to do. But the organization is going to be be, as far as I'm concerned, looking ahead, it ought to be a mixed organization, so that we have some other young people sitting among us who have perhaps equal time to ask you questions and to say some things about what they think is going on today, and to respond to another interpretation about what you thought went on yesterday. So I hope that you don't feel that the museum is going to somehow drag this thing on and make it something. The museum is you, and it's to the extent that each of you here feels dedicated to the proposition that history is power, that history has a deep meaning not only for today but for tomorrow. To those of you who are willing to give time to that effort, it will indeed increase as a shining example of the continued strength and vitality of the people of Anacostia. And maybe as we become charitable in the future, is that the people of Anacostia, in leading the way for the people of Washington, the people of other cities like ours, is that they too will become after the spirit of an Anacostia. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bernard. I want to recognize Miss Althea Howard, who's just come in. Miss Howard is, as most of you know, the daughter of the late Charles E. Howard, who was a real tower of strength in this community. Did much in developing homes for an awful lot of people and inspiring leadership and cooperation in behalf of the community. We're glad you could come out there. Hope that you will continue to join us as we go about developing the history of Anacostia, which is what we are all about today. Most often, historians tend to wait until people die, and then they go back and dig into all the archives and things and try to put together in their own mind what happened. Well, we're doing that too, but we also want to have a more authentic documentation of Anacostia's history, and that is to search out and seek out what we can get from the books and from the files, and then to have a critical analysis of that in terms of what it actually was in the minds of the people who lived here. The museum is about developing this history, which we hope will really be an authentic documentation of what went on in this community. They've gone all the way back to the time when the first plot of land, when the district was deeded to itself, or whatever happened there, when Maryland and Virginia gave up their portion to develop this community, and they brought it on down from Homestead right on down. They're doing a terrific job in terms of getting research from the archives of the United States and whatever other places they can find it. And the purpose for asking you to come is to have your input to make it more real and more living, so that this can be a full and complete history of Anacostia, its people, and the things that have happened here from time to time. So we are hoping that out of this meeting, we will, by virtue of your presence, have an organization that dedicates itself to assisting in this venture to develop the history of Anacostia. And we're going to sort of play this thing by ear. After the meeting, we will ask for volunteers to another young man, Anacostia, been here twice as long as I have. He's still a young man. My brother Norman Dale. Come in, have a seat, Norman. Hey, put your coat over here. And we will now have a presentation by Mr. John Tetroff. Mr. Tetroff is a student at George Washington, Mr. John. Right. George Washington University, who's been working with us, and he's done considerable research in the area of Anacostia businesses and in other ways. And he's become a very positive and very useful part of this institution. We're very proud to have John with us, and we'd like to introduce him to you at this time, Mr. John Tetroff.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. It's a real pleasure to present this report to you today, especially because so many of you here helped me put it together. The report represents a summary of the recollections of many Anacostians about the history of their community, both in terms of the settlement of Barry Farms after the Civil War, and in terms of the growth of commercial establishments in Barry Farms from the period of around 1867 to about 1900. And I think the report, as you'll see through the slide presentation that I'll give you, represents the kind of report that the Anacostia Historical Society can formulate for itself, because as I said, it's basically a summary of your recollections, and I hope that I will have the opportunity in the future, as you carry out your work, to help put together other reports about other subjects of Anacostia history, because this report, which I worked with you on last summer, is only a small part of the overall history of Anacostia, and there's certainly a lot more documentation that has to be done. Could we turn on these bright lights for the slides, Mr. Technician? Can everyone see this fairly clearly? Or should perhaps we could close the blinds back there?
How's that?
How about this one here?
This one. That's better, I'm sure.
I'd like to start the presentation with a discussion of what Anacostia and Barry Farms was like prior to the Civil War. This picture is a photograph of a painting which is hanging in the White House today. In the foreground is Anacostia, and across the river you can see the Naval Shipyard and the Capitol building in the background here. This picture was painted in about 1831, and as you can see, Anacostia is very rural, very sparsely settled. Its property was largely owned by just a few people. Some of the tracts were cultivated for farming, others were simply wooded areas and totally unsettled. Now, the Civil War is the period that we can trace the beginning of Barry Farms to. As a result, or as in an attempt to disrupt the economy of the southern states during the Civil War, President Lincoln declared that all slaves would be considered contraband of war. In other words, if slaves could escape to the north, or if they were captured by the Union troops, they would not be returned to their owners. And so many slave families made their way to Washington to seek the protection of the federal government and Mr. Lincoln. As a result of that very vast influx of immigrants from the South, there were many large settlements of people in temporary homes who needed much more adequate houses. Now, this is a a picture which was taken in Alexandria toward the end of the Civil War, which shows the kinds of conditions that freedmen were living in at the time. Many of them, because of the skills that they had acquired in the South, readily were able to assimilate themselves into the economy of an urban environment. But many of them simply had skills as farm laborers. And so they had no place to go, they couldn't work in the city, and they therefore were at the mercy of the federal government, which provided them with food and shelter. As you can see, the shelter was quite inadequate. Now, partially as a result of these conditions, the Freedmen's Bureau was set up to aid the freedmen in their transition from slavery to freedom. And one of the purposes, therefore, was to purchase land in order that freedmen could find a dignified place to live in the city of Washington. Now, General O.O. Howard was the president or chairman of the Freedmen's Bureau. He undertook to purchase 3 farms in Anacostia around 1867. The first was the Talbert Farm, which was located about where the museum is now. It included that part of Martin Luther King Avenue between Talbot Street and Howard Road, and then from that point down to the river. The second farm was the Barry Farm, which is, you see, circumscribed by this triangle here. On this map it's called Potomac City, but as you know, many of you, Barry Farms was known as Hillsdale, Potomac City, and many other names all through history. And the third farm was the Stanton Farm, which I'm not really sure what the boundaries are, but Stanton Town is up here, and I believe it was in this area here, up above Potomac. It's called here Potomac City. Now, the farm which was subdivided for freedmen housing was the Barry Farm. As you can see, some of the familiar roads through here: Howard Road, Sumner Road, Eldons, and Stanton Roads. Now, the Freedmen's Bureau was not only interested in building houses for freedmen, but it was also interested in employing them in some meaningful way. And so what they did was to hire freedmen who were in these settlement areas downtown to come out to the Barry Farm and clear roads so that people could come in and build their homes. And they cleared forests away so that people could then come in and build their homes. They provided each family with only $50 worth of lumber. And so the houses that they were able to build were very small, but as you'll see in a minute, quite dignified. This is an original freedman's home. It's, if those of you who live on Evelyn's Road may recognize it, it's 2536. It's presently occupied by Mrs. Ella Paris, and it was built by her grandfather, James Howard. Now, there were only 2 rooms in this house originally. You can see the original portion of the house only went back as far as this roof extends. The bottom floor was a combination kitchen and living room, and the top floor was a bedroom. They didn't have any sophisticated equipment. There were no contractors to help them out, so they built it with their own hands. The doors and the window frames were handmade. In fact, they didn't even have metal nails, and so they had to use wooden pegs to join the boards in the corner. But as you can see, it's a very dignified house, which is quite a contrast to the settlement that you saw earlier. I might mention that some of the hardware that was used to build this house was probably bought at a familiar hardware store to all of us. J.T. Campbell, that's the great-grandfather of J.F. Campbell, was operating a store at the corner of 12th and N Streets Southeast back in 1867. And it's his grandson, which was just about to give up this business on Good Hope Road, who's still with us today. J.T. Campbell moved his store from 12th and N Southeast in 1889 over to Good Hope Road. And of course, I think he's moved back and forth several times over the last few years. I'd like to try to characterize these early years of, I'd like to mention that these houses were referred to as A-frame houses. The reason for that is that, of course, the A shape of the roof. Doesn't mean much to us today because most houses are that construction, but in those days, most of the houses were built with a flat roof, and so this kind of construction was recognized as kind of a new style, a different style of house. And as I mentioned, this was the original portion of the house, right here to here forward. So just by firelight, because that was the only time they had to build their homes. And they would work all day during the day, walk over to Barry Farms, work all night, and go back downtown and work. And so you can imagine it was quite a difficult time. The times were difficult for other reasons. These were back in these days, and I guess many of you can remember that the winters were very, very cold. There were no public improvements whatsoever provided by the Freedmen's Bureau except for the roads that I mentioned. There are no sewers, nothing at all, which we're familiar with today in urban living. And to make all these conditions worse, there was quite a bit of conflict between the Barry Farms community and the community of Uniontown, which was the area we today call Old Anacostia. Old Anacostia was settled originally in 1854 by a development company headed by a man named John Van Hook. And it was his idea to subdivide that property into very small lots and sell it to working class, white-only purchasers. And when these residents of Uniontown got word that there was going to be a permanent freedmen's settlement in the Barry Farm, they of course were afraid that their investments were going to be in danger and that this was going to bring all kinds of problems and so forth and so on. Same kind of thing that we hear today. And as a result of this, those families who came across the bridge here with their belongings and came up the hill to build their houses were running into physical and verbal abuse as they passed down Monroe Street, which is the old name for Nichols Avenue. In fact, it's from the records we have, the Freedmen families were so in fear of their homes and their new lives that they formed a militia in order to protect their homes from what they thought was possible attack from Uniontown. And so, as you can imagine, many of you here, your great-grandparents had quite a difficult time, and it certainly can be said that they were very courageous in their efforts to establish this community. I'd like to move now to a discussion of some of the very earliest professionals and businessmen who lived in Barry Farms. The first person I'd like to talk a little bit about is John Moss, whom many of you may remember. John Moss was the first lawyer in Barry Farms. He really had two professions. He was a defender for the police department, and he was also a community counselor. He took care of the community's legal problems. In a professional sense, for those who could afford to pay, he charged, of course, a fee. For those who could not afford to pay, he accepted payment in kind. Example of this, many of you told me the story last summer when I was talking about this particular report that John, you could always tell when John Moss had won his case in court because you could see him walking home to the Barry Farm with a goose under his arm. And of course, that was the way that some people would pay him for his services. John Moss's descendants are still Washingtonians, and Mrs. Anita Moss Mason wasn't able to make it today, but she's very interested in working with the Historical Society. In fact, she told me once that every single generation of John Moss's family has produced a lawyer. So they've had quite a family. But we're anxious to learn much more about John Moss and his descendants. This is, as you can see from the caption, Lewis Douglas, one of Frederick Douglass's sons. He was a very active businessman in Washington and a resident of Barry Farms. Mrs. Green told me that when she was living on Howard Road, Lewis Douglas lived right on the corner here, the corner of Howard and Nichols, where the playground is for the school. He was a lawyer, a real estate broker who dealt in land in Barry Farms. He was also the president for a time around the turn of the century of the first black-owned bank in Washington, the Capital Savings Bank. He was also very instrumental in helping to have the streetcar put in over the bridge and into Anacostia. So he was, in his own right, a very, very civic-minded and famous Anacostian. This is one of Frederick Douglass's grandsons, Joe Douglas. Joe Douglas, many of you, the little-known sides of Frederick Douglass's life was his activities as a businessman. This is a picture of the board of directors of the Alpha Life Insurance Company, of which he was a member. This picture was taken in 1893. He lived in Anacostia from 1877 to 1895, so this is just 2 years before his death. I don't know offhand the names of some of these other board members, but several of them are Anacostians. Professor Weatherless is one of them. I don't have the names of the others, but Bunbury? Oh. They can sit right up here.
I mean, Ellis. Miss Martha Ellis, folks. Nice to have you, Miss Ellis.
Yeah, nice to be here.
One of the pioneers of recreation in Anacostia.
First time I've been here on your place.
And Ruth Ellis Ducker, the daughter of Mrs. Ellis.
This is a site which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. This is the old Douglas Hall, which was the largest office
Shouldn't
commercial establishment, and for many years a landmark in Barry Farms. From what you told me, I know that along the bottom floor was Dr. Gale's and later Dr. Shipley's pharmacy. Arthur Goodloe had a grocery store on the bottom floor, along with Henry Sales Sr., who had he had a confectionery shop there. The second floor was used for social activities. It was a dance hall, and then the third floor was for apartments. And right next door here is later on. I'm not sure at this time if that's what it was, but Epps Restaurant is something that sticks in my mind. It's at least one of the periods of history that we looked at.
That's before it's cold out. We have Miss Lawyer Tignor's daughter here this evening,
Right.
who had an office in that building, where you see that white
Right here.
thing there. Yeah. Lawyer Tignor had an office there, and
Mrs.
his
Dale,
daughter's here.
Can you raise a question?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to.
I want to know the relationship between Barry Farms and Anacostia.
Okay. Anybody here can answer that? Go
Well,
ahead. No, go ahead.
Anacostia was the name that was used at the time that Uniontown was the only settlement over here. And Barry Farm was just that. It was the farm of the Barry family, and it was quite quietly acquired by General O. Howard from Freedmen's Bureau when they were ready to sell the tract. It was not known. That's quite a historical record there for the charges that some of them tried to place against General Howard for having moved into this territory. It was revealed again at the time of the 50th anniversary of the Anacostia Bank that all of the land in Uniontown was coveted against ever being owned or inherited by Negroes, Orientals, you name it, anything except Caucasians. So that is the reason that Barry Farm has held on to the name of Barry. It was 300 acres that ran from the river to about Alabama Road back to what was beginning of St. Elizabeth's Hospital. And that is the tract in which General Howard bought with the money of the Freedmen's Bureau and sold to the freedmen enough lumber and a piece of land to build their original homes.
It's reputed that the Anacostia Indians
Oh,
from
yes.
Maryland,
That's
and
right.
that's how we got the name.
The name comes from the Anacostia
And
Indians.
rather than to be
the whole thing, I mean, Uniontown and all of that was the Anacostia. I mean, you can read back when, John Smith made his, trip here to this part of Potomac. That, all of the land was originally settled in some manner by the Anacostia Indians. But I misunderstood. I just thought you meant what was the relation between, now using the term Barry Farm and Anacostia. You see, Barry Farm, there was a family that owned a farm, and it was named Barry. And there came a time when General Howard could make a transaction and purchase that land. And that was how he did it. And he did it quietly for the benefit of the freedmen. They were mainly in large numbers at that time. They had been brought into Washington, and they were now, in some instances, they were, in the beginning, they were housed there on the site where the Freedmen's Hospital is now. That was one of the original areas in which they had a large subdivision of emergency housing established for the benefit of the freedmen. Well, that's what I thought you meant. That's what I thought you meant. But when you use Barry Farm in speaking of Anacostia history, you're speaking about the purchase of the land by General O. Howard from the Barry family, which he divided up and sold to freedmen. And that was that's the beginning of the black settlement. We call it black now. You all have learned how to say black. Negro or whatever. Rose by any other name is just as sweet.
And then when
That's
the
what-
post office
that's
was
what-
established, it still used the name
I guess I want to say
Anacostia
one more
rather
thing.
than Barry
I want to
Farm.
say one more thing. I'm very impressed because I'm not from here. Okay? I'm really impressed because I was wondering why so much distinction about Anacostia.
Yeah.
I really was. And then I heard the gentleman talk and his portrayal of the historical events, all things that occurred here. I was wondering in my own mind what made this area so distinctive.
Well, that was a distinctive. It was the United States government's first opportunity to do something in public housing for a group of people who were not able at that time to have any other recourse except unfit shelter. And it is historical. I mean, and for, you can see already from those of us who are here, we have deep roots in Anacostia.
Right on.
No,
Thank you very much. I'd like to, at this point, take you on a tour, if you will, of Nichols Avenue as Norris Scott described it to me during the period of 1890 to 1899. is the relationship then to, was he also an undertaker here? in this-
Yes, yes, he followed his father in the business here.
I see. Okay. Now this is a picture which you may remember from our exhibit of a couple of years ago, the evolution of a community. This is Dr. Shipley in what was formerly Dr. Gale's pharmacy. Dr. Gale's and Shipley changed hands with that business around 1917. In fact, Dr. Shipley purchased Douglas Hall at that time, and he owned it right up through about 1940 when it was torn down. You see him here with one of his assistants. It's a very interesting picture because if you get the photograph itself, you can actually read the advertisements that are hung across the ceiling. There's some very exotic remedies for colds and so forth. And apparently Washingtonians was popular during those times. But it's a very, very interesting photograph. There's so many small details you can look at. Of course, Shipley then. Earl Shipley wasn't able to make it today.
Yes, he was.
Here he is. You said you weren't coming.
Be good, mister.
All right. Now this is courtesy of someone I'm sure you all know, Mac Taylor. I talked to him last summer for a while. We did the same kind of tour of Nichols Avenue that Nora Scott took me on, but this is 1915 rather than the 1890s. And I'll just walk down the street with you. Let's start at the corner of this slide is yeah, that's right. This is Talbot. Here's Nichols Avenue. Let's see, Paris, you may have to help me on this. This is the Palms. Is that the remember that place on the corner there? Meeting place? Okay, then there was the right. Then there was the tailor shop. That had a name for a proprietor. Then Lorenzo Stewart's barber shop. Next to him, someone that Mrs. Duckett, you mentioned to me the other day, Mulligan's taxi stand. Then Jim's barber shop. Further on down, Park's taffy shop. Then the Allen residence, April's dry goods store. And then, of course, the Bethlehem Church. And now Mason's Funeral Home on the corner of Howard and Nichols. Starting down on the other side of Talbot and Nichols was Williams Grocery Store. Car pit, Soper's fruit stand, then Dr. Scott's residence and office, and then Adamson School, Bernie School, and then there were a series of smaller stores on the corner. Len Payton, as you see, is still there after all these years. Thomas's Coal Yard was next to him, then Slade's Dry Goods Store, Isaac Ray's Grocery. And as you remember in the other photo, the other drawing, Isaac Ray was on this corner, and now he's moved down across the street. And then last is Miller's Warehouse. Now, I have a question. Is that the same Miller who had the store on the corner over here? Or is that a different? There, I have a picture later on which I'll show you. Maybe we can answer that later. Now, this is a contemporary store which has a history to it. Bauman's grocery store, which is on the corner of Wade and Sumner Roads. This used to be John Slaughter's blacksmith and wheelwright shop. Now, John Slaughter worked with Hodge, and when Hodge retired, he moved the business from the corner of Sumner and Nichols over to the corner of Wade and Sumner, and he maintained that business how long? Up until the 20s? I'm not sure when. Was it at least
That's long, yeah, up to the
30s?
almost up to 30, between 20 and 30. That blacksmith shop, you can hear his anvil ring all the time.
Yeah.
Well, they call it the blacksmith.
like it.
Looks like
We'll have to get the photograph. You can get close.
Yeah, blow it up.
that's way.
I think we can show
And here's someone I'm sure familiar to many of you, Walter McKenzie. Walter McKenzie started his paint shop behind the home that the McKenzie family had on Nichols Avenue, further up near the St. Elizabeth's Wall. In later years, I think around 1913, Ray, you told me, your father built that paint shop on the behind what is now the New Burton School. And in earlier years, he painted carriages, and many people told me stories of remembering carriages lined up for blocks in front of Mackenzie's paint shop. He was quite skilled at what he did, and apparently had a reputation which was citywide. And he once carriages were out, he began to paint automobiles, and I believe that the Mackenzie family was painted the first one of the first trucks at the what's the furniture store down there?
Curtis Brothers.
Curtis Brothers, yeah. Now this is one's at my presentation. It's a view of Nichols Avenue looking down toward the old Bethlehem Church, and we can identify some of the buildings. This is Douglas Hall. Masons is it's hard to see, but it's right here. And then of course Bethlehem, and I guess this is Miller's store here.
Store in Dr. Scott's
Dr.
office.
Scott's office, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Can we have the lights, please?
Thank you, John. Yeah. Huh?
Thank you very much.
Oh, wow. We got one more thing. You gonna come back? Go ahead, they take care of it. She's on. Thank you, John. That was a very vivid and informative discussion of the commercial aspect of Anacostia. The next person is one who is really doing a tremendous job in corralling and information of every imaginable nature and from every imaginable source. She's in charge of our research project on the history of Anacostia and doing a tremendous job. And I know you are going to be delighted with the things that she will be calling on you to do and to discuss with you. She has really done an outstanding job in this area of developing information for the museum. It's a pleasure for me to present Mrs. Louise Hutchinson. She, incidentally, is the granddaughter-in-law of Mr. Hutchinson, who lived right up the hill here in back of this building.
We're going to wait just a few moments while they rewind the tape. Mr. Dale really is telling you the truth, not about all those good things he said about me, but all the places we looked for information. Mr. Dale came to see me last